Welcome back, friends. This chapter is actually called Appendix 2. Theology of No Self is basically her defense against all the people who would tell her that what she's claiming about no self falls outside of Orthodox Christianity. If this is a chapter that interests you, you probably want to read the paper she submitted at SAND, Science and Non-Duality Conference in California. I believe it was in 2015. She also gave her last public lecture after that event, and I posted a link to that in a couple of videos a long time ago. So you can search in the comments and all the videos, or I will try to find it and maybe record it and upload it. Anyway, this is a short chapter. It's not a chapter, it's Appendix 2. It's only about 5 pages long, so enjoy. It has been said that complete loss of self is not in the Christian tradition, that it has no theological or orthodox foundation. It is not Christian. One can expect to find this denunciation in just about every commentary on the Christian spiritual life, some statement assuring the reader no one ever loses their self-identity, not in this life and certainly not in the next. This has not been said by totally unqualified, but by otherwise respected writers in the field of Christian spirituality, although usually by a commentator. While there is no question these people believe what they say, what is questionable is whether their belief is based on Orthodox Christianity, or if it is just a gut reaction to their own personal fears, afraid it might be true. Actually, nothing could be easier to account for, nothing more theological and orthodox than the ultimate loss of all self, one's own personal identity. Not only is no self orthodox, but Christian theology depends on this truth. It could be said that no self is the major premise of the Christian faith, fundamental to it. So, let us briefly state the key theological premises. Number 1. Person is defined as the soul's agent, subject, I am, self-identity, everything meant by self. Orthodox theology holds the man Jesus was not a human person. He had or owned no subject, no self, no personal I am. This was not his self-identity. It is a fundamental teaching, then, that Jesus was not a human person, that he, a human being, had no self. This is the Orthodox teaching. No theologian would dare deny Jesus had no self or say he was a human person, for if he did, he'd be thrown out as an Nestorian, a heretic. So anyone who says no self is not fundamental to Christianity, its tradition and theology, or thinks it is not basic to his understanding of Christ, has no knowledge of Christianity and should be ignored completely. By the way, boys and girls, I believe the chapter of the paper that she delivered at SAND was non-duality as a definition of Christ. It's a nice long one. It's very good. Number 2. Orthodoxy holds that in the incarnation, God, Logos, never assumed or created any human person, any human subject or agent of the soul, any self or I am. Thus, God never created the self-identity of any human person, not even the man Jesus. God only creates human nature, whereas man freely creates his own unique person, his own unique self, and all this means. It is because God never created the human person or self of the man Jesus that Jesus is said to be no person, no self. This is orthodox. Number 3. Add to this the dictum of the Fathers as stated by Gregory of Nazianzus, quote, what the Logos did not assume or unite to itself in the incarnation is not saved, end quote. Only what the Logos assumed is saved. Since God did not assume or create any human person or self, this means no person or self is saved. If this is not orthodox, then Gregory and all the Fathers were wrong. In truth, however, they had it right. They were orthodox. What this means is that anyone who intends to, quote, follow Jesus had better lose his self as soon as possible. Those who think they can give their self to God and not lose it are only fooling themselves, want to eat their cake but keep it too. Loss of self is the very foundation of Christianity. Number 4. Premised on the Western Church's understanding of hypostasis as person, and that the Trinity is three persons, some people may argue that the reason Jesus was not a human person is because he was a divine person instead. But this is not orthodox. The divine person of Christ was not the man Jesus. The divine person was God, the Logos. This is orthodox. Think of it this way. God is man's true being, but man is not God's being. God is man's true self, but man is not God's self. So too, one could say, God is man's true person, but man is not God's person. Number 5, another piece of Alexandrian orthodoxy is that instead of Jesus as a human person or self, God's person or self acted in Jesus' stead, acted as the divine agent or subject of Jesus' soul. Thus, God's person, who was substituted for Jesus' human person or self. This means that the one who died on the cross was not the selfless person Jesus, rather it was God's own divine self, subject, I am, God's ontological self that died on the cross. So now even God has no self, no subject or agent, no I am. If God did not die, then who did? Remember, Jesus had no self-identity. Thus it was God, Jesus' true divine self, who died. So the one that arose, of course, was the totally selfless Christ. So everything defined as God's person or self-identity died, is gone forever. Why? Because, in truth, God is no self and no person. That it was God in person, a divine self that died, this is perfectly orthodox. The real mystery of the cross is that no one understands it. The fathers never thought there was any salvation in the death of a mere human person. Only the death of a divine person or self constitutes man's eternal salvation. And in this, the fathers were absolutely correct. This is the truth of the cross, yet no one can even conceive of it, and if they could, they wouldn't accept it anyway. The human mind cannot get hold of anyone, divine or human, with no self-identity. Yet it is the death of this divine metaphysical self or person that affects man's eternal life in and with God, his salvation, that is. That not only was Jesus selfless, but God is selfless, this is the foundation of Christianity's whole understanding of salvation. Those who deny that death of a divine self is the keystone of Christianity's understanding of salvation are simply not orthodox. If the one who died did not lose its self-identity, then all that died on the cross was a physical body. God, however, did not dramatize Christ's death for all time just to reveal someone's organs had stopped functioning. Christianity is founded on the true nature of Christ's death based on who truly died. It was not founded on the death of a human person or self, but a divine person, a divine self. This is why the cross is literally the icon of no self. Its mystery being the death of God as a divine person, a divine self, a divine subject, I am, and all this means. None of this, of course, is my theology or orthodoxy. I never made any of it up. It's all in the books and has been for over 1,500 years now. And if orthodox theologians do not like it, they will just have to eat crow. But so much for anyone who says complete loss of self or person is unorthodox or untheological. They had better go back to their books. But if the orthodoxy of no self is plain as day, yet who in Christianity ever points this out or even talks about it? Obviously, it is not something theologians would wish to discuss or even think about. They couldn't handle it, but then few people can. Those who deny this truth merely spend time searching for ways to circumvent it, as theologians do. Remember, the definition of person as subject, I am, who, or self, dates from the 4th century writings and is not a product of modern psychology, as some authors would like us to believe. The 3 strategic ways my theology differs from the going orthodox theology is, number 1, God is no person or persons or self, never was. This is absolutely false. Footnote 1. That God is a divine subject, self, I am, is Orthodox Hinduism. God made